Okay, hey everybody, welcome to the Pearl Division Power Rankings from the RPDL. My name is Zack, and today I'm joined by Julien and Evan once again.
Hi, it's Julien.
Hi, I'm Evan. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, glad to have you guys again. We had a good time last time doing Platinum and Diamond, and we're not going to waste any time today, so yeah, we're going to jump straight into Team 1. So up first, we actually have Ed coaching the Ninjazards. And this was our round 1 Zacian pick, which isn't surprising. And then it's paired with some very heavily speed tiers and honestly very offensive. Lots of pressure with like Colossal and other strategies that work with that really well. Honestly, a pretty daunting team. What do you guys think?
Possibly the fastest team in the division.
Yeah.
It also has a really strong trick room option with the Reuniclus and the Colossal. Like it can lead Instant for the fake out and then parting shot into the Colossal after trick room is up or something. Unfortunately, it's super Ghost weak. Especially Kali Ghost will be problematic for the team because it outspeeds everything here. And hits both targets at the same time.
Right.
It also has different strong and fast possible setups for the weakness policy, like on Dragapult, on Colossal, on Sceptile. It could even see Incineroar and Celebi, but they're just not as fast. So it makes it hard to prepare for all the different options on this team, I think.
I think it's interesting to see the Frostless kind of putting in work, right? Putting a lot of pressure, not just like trying to prop a weakness policy, but being pretty fast as well. So if I were to go up against this team and I really need to outspeed something, I can't just look at the Frostless, then I might look a bit further at the Sceptile and then at the Zacian and followed by the Dragapult. So that could make EV training a little bit hard for this team because you kind of have to account for everything. And my my one liner for this team is that it is in essence a colossal team because that demands the most respect. I would say even more than Zacian, because Zacian can have some weaknesses that can be covered for. Then again, Zacian also has some pretty impressive like coverage moves. So being able to move fast and hit hard with the instant +1 attack should do very well for this team. A few stuff that is missing from a typical colossal team, the one that Wolf Glick used to win Players Cup 2, I believe. That's the formula, which is Colossal plus Dragapult, fast serve, followed by Aqua Jet from Urshifu, then Incineroar as a form of another form of fake out or intimidate support. And what's missing here is that flying type and the grass type. I think the grass type in Sceptile should be okay for this team. However, the team does need a flying type to switch into Max Quicks that are very obviously going to go into Colossal. One more thing that's missing here, I would say, would be the steel and the ground type to give, very important defensive max moves in Steel Spike and Max Quick. So I believe the Zacian hero has to stay as a fairy type throughout the league, right?
Yeah. Correct.
Yeah, the other one is banned.
So this is, to me, a colossal team that's missing a flying type, a steel type, and a ground type. So these can sort of be covered, but like through coverage moves. I think a lot of these mons do get these coverage moves, but maybe it's important to kind of have the stat move or as a ground type to be an immunity to electric types out there.
Right. I do want to ask though, because we never really touched on Celebi. What are your thoughts on Celebi filling in like that grass type role more often than Sceptile?
Well, that's a good question. I think as a mythical, base 100 stat all round is actually very bulky and it cannot be underestimated. So I just think that Celebi kind of has to look out for bug type moves because these do, like quite a lot of mons do carry random bug type moves. Even I believe Urshifu gets U-turn, so that can catch the Celebi user off guard. Its bulk should be decent enough to take any non-stat bug type move, and I think it does get some decent coverage, but not good enough for me to sort of rely on it as a Dynamax candidate.
No, for sure.
rid of all the Pokemon that threaten Celebi, it can probably just clutch out endgames with Leech Seed Recover Stall or something like that. Like, it has some nice tools. Also, Trick Room
Oh.
Prison is always nice to have.
Oh yeah.
Speaking of that, yeah, Celebi does get access to Perish Song as well, so
Oh, true.
it can sort of come in as a late game option, especially when you are going, like, you have the 3 Pokemon or 4 Pokemon advantage, and they only have 2 left, and Celebi gets to move first because it's pretty fast in its speed tier.
Absolutely. Yeah, so as far as ratings go, I went ahead and did a 9 just to. I mean, this team's they demand so much respect. As you said, both of you kind of stated. There's so many like so strong mons here, and it's hard to just pinpoint the 6 or 4 that are going to be brought because I think there's any type of combination that could potentially work here. Even the Wartortle could maybe, if it had a matchup with something, could even show up. So yeah.
True, I would think that Wartortle would sort of come in and, as like yawn support or to try and be as bulky as possible if you foresee that something would want to gun down the Urshifu Rapid. So I think this repeat water type seems okay even in a squad of 10.
Or just to have Fake Out and later Aqua Jet in the Colossal if you need, and can't bring the Urshifu Rapid stack for some reason where it doesn't fit. Or you, like I said, really want to Fake Out. It can work.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Nice. Alright.
Okay. Good draft, good draft. So up next, we have Borb coaching the Greenway Gardevoirs. And for anyone who doesn't know, this used to be Here to the Empire. They went through a name change and transformation, just to put that out there, make everyone aware it's watching. But yeah, looking at the draft here, honestly, it's an okay draft. Just at first glance, Genesec's a very interesting mythical with a lot of different coverage and options to run it. They do have like, it's an okay. Like defensive team. It's got a lot of bulk in some areas with like Stack Attacker, for example, but nothing too crazy from that. It's extremely offensive for the most part. It does have redirection with Togekiss. I think there's definitely like some major type overlaps here. Not sure if that's necessarily a good or bad thing with like fairy types. They have 3 fairy types, 2 ghost types, for example. Very interesting. What do you guys think?
Next team that potentially really struggles with ghost types if I don't bring specifically Silvally Dark or Normal, for example. It looks really powerful, but it's like how slow it is. It has a really strong max airstream with Togekiss, which kind of balances it out, and obviously a great Trick Room option. The team has really strong offense and also really strong support. I think this is like the 4th team now we covered with 3 or more fairy types and Silvally on top.
Very true, very true.
I feel like this team kind of needs to be as bulky as possible and then hopefully pray to just survive moves because I don't really believe in like the airstream option from Togekiss because if you can sort of gun it down, then the Togekiss would not do well alone. And then at the same time, if you try and go like Trick Room, then I'm not very convinced if Stakataka can sort of handle everyone alone, especially in a double battle, right? Like going up against 2 Pokemon, one of which has the potential to even protect. So this team kind of has to ride on the backs of Grims now to try and make it as bulky as possible and try and get into a good position. I really like the Genesect pick. Genesect can easily Dynamax. That 4 times weakness to fire, to me, it's not that worrying because Genesect does have decent stats in the form of defense and special defense, right? So I sometimes if the Genesect gets the correct download boost, then as a coach of this team, I would just Dynamax the Genesect to help the team out, especially with Togekiss's support, Grimmsnarl, and then maybe even Gengar could come. I really want to chime in with Julien's note about the weakness to Ghost. I think this team really has to take care of it because Silvella alone is not enough to be a Ghost resist, and this team really just has to be careful of opposing Ghost moves. I believe Giratina is very, very, very bulky, so that could just help the team out a little bit. But I think it's a bit too slow for my liking, so the team does need to give Giratina some airstream boost, or if you can afford it, then go for max strike boost against your opponent.
Yeah.
Also, I think, Evan, you mentioned on Tuesday when we recorded that this is the team with the second highest base stat total across all divisions.
No, it's not this one. I think it's Air's team.
Yeah,
we'll
this
we'll
one.
to-
That was what
Oh,
Zack
right. Cool.
mentioned earlier.
Yeah. This is
That's been changed.
545. Correct. So it's on screen now. 545.
Oh, it is really bulky.
Oh wow.
It's most of the bulk comes in I would say defense. That's like Stakataka stat. And then like the attack and special attack stat are pretty decent as well. So nothing too extravagant. I think 131 seems to be the highest. And then from the special attack stat, Gardevoirs special attack seems to be the highest. I think they do make a lot of sense. So it's really the epitome of bulky offense, and hopefully this plays out well for our coach here. I would still the biggest note I want to say, like the one-liner for this team, is that like this fantasy core seems to be very interesting. Fairy, and I would say the fairy would be either Grimmsnarl or Togekiss, and then the Genesect. Then Dragon would be the Giratina with so much bulk, and then it's the interesting fantasy core that kind of covers its weaknesses well. So it's quite a well executed draft, all things considered, without a fire or a water type, and that's very interesting.
And
There's a water type. It even protects Togekiss.
yeah, they did get the Sea King, grass type.
Yeah, fire or grass.
Yeah.
Fire or grass.
And I know you like to cover it, but they did get the what's the word? Mascot pick with the Gardevoir, so that's cool to look at too.
All right. Awesome.
Yeah, that's really important.
Okay.
Yeah, good draft.
And it can even proc Grimmsnarl's weakness policy and pickpocket with the Draining Kiss or something.
There's some
That's
cool
neat.
things you can do with Gardevoir.
Also Shadow Sneak into Gengar or whatever, like a few cool things.
Right. But with that being said, up next, Frame 1 Mario coaching the glorious Goomy. This team is very interesting. It's got some very fast Pokemon, obviously Regieleki being the fastest within the game, and then followed by with Spectrier, base 130, Ribombee, just slightly below that. This team's kind of frail, especially stat-wise. Defensively, it's a little more heavy set with like Stone Joiner and Tangrowth being able to tank some hits better. It's got some diverse attack stats, very high HP stats though. Only 3 Pokemon in this draft that fall below 100. Well, Corviknight's 98, but it's close enough. So that's kind of cool to note for the most part. What do you guys think?
This is the thing that the Aselgor cannot final Gambit. Because everybody's based on Julian. Sorry, Zack. Sorry, Julien. Yeah.
Oh, good. That was important to point out. We will get to Exegor later on. Yeah. What I see here is a Mew, a Regieleki, and Tangrowth almost that have the same special and physical attack. Even Reshiram could attack decently on the physical side if facing something with really high special defense, or if they expect an EV, mostly with Flare Blitz or maybe Stone Edge or something. So I think it's kind of hard to EV for this. Like, do you want to put your points into defense or specially defense? Also, I love the speed of the team. It's so fast. It has Tailwind on the team, but you basically never use it, I think. Also, the surprise Trick Room option from Mew with Azumarill or Tangrowth in the back could really catch opponents off guard. I'm just not a fan of Ribombee, but that's basically on every time I see it on, because whenever I see Ribombee, it literally just dies and does nothing else.
No, and I definitely think, like you said, I don't think Tailwind's really a priority here with Corviknight. I think you'd be more consistent just running like Speed Swap with Ribombee if that was absolutely needed. Like you could Speed Swap a Azumarill with Huge Power or something. That'd be kind of cool. But yeah, I think just looking at the initial draft here, I don't see a lot of synergy at first glance between each individual Pokemon. It's kind of like a bunch of standalones that could do different jobs. But yeah, let's see what Evan says.
That's interesting. Like looking at the scores, I don't know why I kind of deviated so much from you guys, because I feel like this team is a very good stuffs team, right? With quite a few options to sort of set up, and then this team can come in with so much surprises that can easily catch you off guard. So I gave it a bit of like a lot of points in terms of room for creativity.
Right.
And then I think the Ribombee, like my opinion for Ribombee is that it can catch you by surprise as well because it's so rarely seen, and it can get access to like screens and sticky web, struggle bug. So I think it might be helpful to some sense. Then I think like based on the typing, I guess there are some downsides, and I guess that's why you guys rank the team lower in the form of like rock and ghost type weakness. Wow, this is the third team in a row with a ghost type big ghost type weakness and no good switch-ins or no good immunities. I guess Corviknight would kind of be the best wall against Max Phantasm, but after that, like what else can you do, right? You might need to contest the speeds with Ileki. Like I don't know whether the Tailwind could be reliable or not, and then maybe go with Dynamax Spectra to try and fight the opposing ghost type. So one bright side for this team is that it does have that Tangrowth that offers important redirection to sort of help anyone set up. I think Azumarill with the belly drum can be really threatening for opponents, paired with the Intimidate support from Torracat. Even something like Aquajet with Stonejourner beside it, it could be quite interesting. And then maybe Nasty Plot from Spectra or something spicy from Mew.
Or even just the speed swap from Ribombee after setting up the belly drum is nice. What I forgot to mention earlier, I really like Ribombee's abilities. Like Sweet Well is so good, and Shield just letting it do whatever it wants to do is also great.
No, I agree with you.
Yeah, I guess that only like falls prey to follow me, like to redirection. Yeah, I wanted to note that I think Mew gets access to Swords Dance, Calm Mind, and I believe Bulk Up. So that's so spicy, and with good redirection, we rarely see that on a Mew team. I think we haven't really seen Mew in action before, right? Like, they don't really perform as well, like historically in RPDL.
Correct.
So I'm excited to see something interesting. I would think that the defensive typing of Reshiram can help the team quite a bit because Reshiram has very few weaknesses, and it's quite important to remember that it's not weak to water. I've seen this very cool Reshiram set from a Taiwanese player in Series 10 because you can't Dynamax it. They went with Grassy Seed Reshiram with Rillaboom on the side, but this team doesn't have Rillaboom. You can sort of activate maybe an Electric Seed, and Reshiram gets access to Body Press. Oh, that was so cool.
Oh, that is cool. It's well thought out. It's kind of just like a bigger, faster Turtonator at that point.
Yes.
Yeah, right on.
So yeah, I think the reason why I gave it 8.0 is because of the room for creativity and the threat in terms of speed right off the bat, because this team can almost always move first and do damage first, and then sort of hope to get crits first or get hacks first.
Yeah, honestly, I think I think I probably did undervalue it just a little bit. Like, I didn't really think of like you mentioned huge power Azumarill paired with like redirection, for example, and you're absolutely correct that could be just game winning on its own if the opponent can't prevent it. So like certain strategies like that, and then like Spectre or Regieleki, I guess I kind of overlooked together because that's a very like popular VGC lead. You could Dynamax one of them or Electroweb and whatnot. I mean, so I would probably bump my score up to like a 5 or 6. I think 4 might just be a little too low, but yeah, there's definitely options with this team.
Interesting. The Azumarill plus Stonejourner is called Huge Power Spot.
One last note. Stonejourner is another Pokemon that we haven't really seen used at all. I think maybe Goomy and Platinum for Season 3 had it for a little bit, but maybe dropped it. So I'm curious to see what it does. But.
True, I think this coach would kind of have to manage it well because quite a lot of the Mons share weaknesses with Stonejourner in terms of Max Quick. And then sometimes if I see a Stonejourner, I'll gun it down with either Max Quick or Max Steel Spike, and that kind of boosts the defense from my opponent's side.
Yeah.
It's something I don't want to see.
No, for sure. Okay, up next we have Lilystorm coaching the Scarlet Scolipedes. So this is going to be our Kyogre team of the Pearl Division. And I want to say it's the second one that's paired with Whimsicott, but they also have Rillaboom as well, so they're doubling up on the grass types there. Mythical slot was Zygarde 10, which we don't get to see used too often as well. It's one of the least chosen Zygarde forms in our league entirely. But it is another Oranguru paired with a Kyogre once again. And I think we've mentioned it before, but both Diamond and Pearl division champions from Season 3 both went undefeated and won finals with Kyogre and Oranguru, so not that means anything necessarily, but just keep that in mind. And I think something that's super cool with this team at first glance is they have Lightning Rod and Sap Sipper both. Drampa's not the most reliable Sap Sipper user because it's like a base 60 attack stat for the most part, but the option's still there for a potential switch in. They do have beat up with Cobalion as well. So this team, it applies a lot of pressure very fast, while also having some bulk in the right places. What do you guys think?
I think this is a pretty unconventional looking Kyogre team.
Mhm.
I really wonder if there's anything in the combination of Kyogre and Oranguru that I just don't see that it's so popular, or if it just randomly worked out like that every time. The speeds are very spread out. I just wish one of the two fastest ones on the team had like any offensive pressure at all. But at least they have really good speed controls so to enable the slower beasts like Kyogre. Two Trick Room setters that can't be faked out is pretty cool. It's also super hard to be very prepared for the potential beat up or Kyogre at the same time.
Well, that's such a good point. I think Julien took the words right out of my mouth by describing this team as unconventional. To me, I found it really weird. Quite a lot of typings sort of missing. Like that's not quite convincing to me. I think maybe like Kyogre plus Oranguru, since both of them are just way too bulky, they don't really share a common weakness, right? So having to like maybe Dynamax to contest the huge damage output coming out from Kyogre and only being able to target one Mon, I think that can kind of split the attention away from either Mon. Then this might be a joke, but if you go for like Origin Pulse and then you go for Instruct, then maybe you have more chance to hit all the Origin Pulses.
That could be cool.
Yeah, I like what Julien said about having to prep for the Kyogre mode and the Rillaboom the Kyogre mode or the Whimsicott Cobalion mode. Does the Zygarde get access to Power Construct for this team?
No, only Aura Break.
Yeah, then that's okay. I guess Zygarde can just sort of come in as support. I don't really.
It has 150 base speed glare, which is decent speed control if it's needed.
Yeah, but the thing is I don't foresee this Zygarde Dynamaxing, so this team might fall prey to being very predictable in terms of Dynamax, and if an opponent can figure things out, then like in games 2 and 3 this team might struggle a little bit because that those lines and those game plans might seem to be very obvious and like revealed in game 1.
Right.
I
Yeah.
like that it has a backup water spout in Chalice, and in addition to the Instruct too. You shouldn't just water spout all day long.
That's very true. They could just do a Trick Room mode Jealous and for Instruct and Water Spout, which that'd actually be really awesome to see, in my opinion. Just because the speed tiers work a little better together rather than Kyogre. But yeah, I think like Evan said, this team can probably be very predictable as far as their Dynamax users. So I think the coach itself is going to have to put in a little more work and into positioning and setting themselves up to basically pull off game wins.
Yeah, one last thing I want to point out is that it's quite interesting to have a double of quite a lot of things. Double 2 Mons that can Water Spout, 2 Mons that can do important grass type damage, and then 2 Mons that actually are justified. So like you have to kind of cover both options. So it's interesting to see like Cobalion and Absol, although they do share the fighting weakness, then the rest of their weaknesses are kind of different. And then like if you have a Prankstermon and you want to Thunder Wave the Cobalion, what if Absol comes? Then you kind of have to also cover for that because you cannot use Prankstermons onto Absol. So collecting all these double Mons with the same toolbox in a sense, I think it's very interesting for this coach. I think Yeah, I'm interested to see how things play out.
Yeah,
I can't imagine.
I definitely agree. It is super interesting to see the double typings everywhere. I know a lot, like most rain cores or most rain drafts don't typically carry like a fire type, but they usually have fire coverage. I'm not sure. Drampa might be the only thing that I at least know of off the top of my head that has any type of fire coverage on this draft.
Yeah.
So that could be interesting if that's a typing that they absolutely might need for a matchup, then they just don't have access to it consistently. But
yeah, because usually typing is usually like fire type is for bug steel or grass steel. Then sometimes rain teams will just YOLO and then just spam water moves.
Yeah.
So let's just hope this plays out. Yeah.
For sure.
All right.
Up next, we have Bepis coaching the Falls Church Critters. So this is the counter to, or the opposite of Kyogre. Here we got Groudon this time, and this is another Groudon Charizard Sun team rather than Venusaur. And paired to Zarude, which is very interesting to see like a grass type paired with the Sun Core other than Venusaur. This team's fairly quick. It's got a couple that break the 100 threshold, even the 110 threshold as well. Very special offensively. I take that back. Both very, very mixed, honestly. They have some amazing support Pokemon with Sneasel, Klefki, and Thundurus if they want to bring that. Honestly, very, very well rounded in my opinion. It does seem a little frail for the most part, aside from like Groudon's base 140 defense stat. I think Zarude's 4 times weakness to bug can be an issue for that mythical slot, but using a Sun team, I would imagine that bug types aren't going to really show up too often. And several amazing max airstream users, but that's about all I have to say right now. What do you guys think?
I like the look of this team. Might struggle against opponents whose main game plan is Trick Room, and they don't manage them from getting it. They don't manage to prevent them from getting it up. It's also super weak to ice, which is problematic if they can't get rid of the ice types or ice attackers with Sard or Landorus. This team has really huge Dynamax threats though, which all do fantastic without it as well, which makes it hard to expect what's actually going to happen each game.
Oh, absolutely.
Then you can pair those with such strong support mods as Klefki, Sneasel, or Thundurus in the games where it doesn't want to max. And you end up with a deadly team.
Yeah, I kind of like this double genie combination in Thundurus and Landorus. Although they are both weak to ice, then they kind of cover each other well. And even the Charizard threatens ice mons like crazy if put in the correct weather condition with Groudon on the field. Then another thing to note is this, I like the Fire Water Grass core. Zarude can be quite strong and it's seldom seen, right? So it takes a little bit of practice to learn how to deal with it. And something to note is like the Leaf Guard can finally come into play. Unfortunately, Zarude doesn't get any other useful abilities, so I guess you just can't burn Zarude on this team. Then I really like the Primarina on this team. It kind of gels it together. It does offer some form of like weakness policy proc on the Groudon, but Groudon just has to hit Precipice Blades. Echoing on you guys' point about setting up Trick Room against this team, I guess this team just kind of has to pray, right? You have to hit, number one, your Heat Wave on your Charizard and your Precipice Blades on your Groudon, and pray that the damage is enough. Otherwise, having like Primarina to sort of be very bulky in Trick Room might be cool. And I think Gotorita is also a nice way to sort of reverse Trick Room or to play mind games with your opponent, because Gotorita has so many other moves that it can do instead of click Trick Room, and then you might overthink it and not click Trick Room against this team. I have a slight impression that this team might have sniped some other coaches, because like Sneasel and Gotorita seem a bit out of place but could even work in this team. Sneasel to sort of provide good support and sort of threaten like a weakness policy proc somewhere. However, there's no and even Surf, like Surf on the Groudon.
Right.
Yeah, but I was just thinking like if this team has some form of a beat up option, then that could be quite scary to always force your opponent to bring redirection.
No, that's definitely very true. But yeah, overall, very well-rounded draft. This might be my favorite so far, just in terms of things I like to use in draft. Some of my favorite mons are on this team currently. And
that the Leaf Guard in Sun makes the Roots jungle healing a bit worse because you might
Right.
never need to actually heal the status.
that's fair. And then as far as type wise go, I mean, I think they did a very well job covering their weaknesses with some resist. There's nothing really poking out or glaring at me that could be an issue. So
For personally, I gave it such a high score because it scores super high in terms of threat level. And with all these like Crafty, Sneasel, and Gotorita, the tools, the VGC tools that it has is so impressive as well.
Oh, absolutely.
And Crafty is always able to be very, very disruptive, and that can spoil a lot of game plans. Not only that, Thunderous can also be Prankster, and Prankster Impulse is also impressive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for me, it was really mostly the ice weakness and the TR weakness. Otherwise, it would have been had way many more points.
Nice.
Which
Very
is-
flexible team.
Yeah, for sure. Up next, we have Davey coaching the Hartlepool Hydreigons. This team, again, it's another fairly mixed defensive team. It's got some defensive and special defensive options here. You do see the common Excelgor Palisand core, which it's been used for a while now as far as Dynamax goes in Sword and Shield. They do have like with the Selgor being base 145 speed, it's one of the faster like weakness policy proc mons, or it does some other support stuff that could be disruptive. And then Talonflame being a priority Tailwind setter with Gale Wings is always pretty nice if you position and play it right. But this is going to be our round 1 Magearna pick, so that's always big, and I'm curious to see how it's going to do. It kind of seems a little off here on this team, but it does have, like I said, Talonflame to potentially make it faster, or Cresselia to keep it slower, so they do have that flexibility. And then as far as Purloin goes, I do want to state Kieran Black's also a very, very strong physical attacker. It definitely benefits from Dynamax more, but I'm curious to see how well Davey ends up using it in a non-max format. What do you guys think?
He has a lot of different ways of speed control, which I like to see.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a huge fan of the Excelgor on the team. I feel like it just does everything. It can final Gambit for the Magearna, maybe giving even +2 on the first turn. Then it's a fantastic partner for Palisand, as you mentioned. It can U-turn into the Tyranitar for a weakness policy proc. It can acid spray to pick up Chaos with Rotom or Magearna.
Mm-hmm.
It can even set up Sand or Rain where it's needed to protect the Magearna from damage or stuff like that. The 2x 4x weaknesses for Rock aren't great, but it's probably not too important because those mons never come together, I think, and also carry a Sash anyway.
Nice. To me, this my one-liner for this draft is it's a very great Magearna draft. I think great execution coming off of that the round 1 Magearna pick. Very surprising to see it go in pick number 6, right?
Oh,
for
yeah.
the Pearl Division.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is quite interesting, and I think Davey did really well building a team around Magearna. We've seen a Selgor and Magearna very early when there was this format called Battle of Legends, where you're allowed to bring mythical mons in a best of in a 1v1 kind of format. So it was actually a doubles format. Yeah. Then Magearna did pretty well, and I really respect Purloin Magearna. It is so unorthodox, but it works so well because you threaten so many things. Right off the bat on turn 1, you threaten Fake Out Trick Room, Copycat Trick Room, Fake Tears, immediate Dynamics on Magearna, or just try and sack the Purloin and let Magearna boost immediately. Then one thing to note about a Selgor Palossand is that to me, it doesn't really work well in practice or in games, but opponents really have to respect it, so the threat level is so high because you do have to prepare a special water type move or a special grass type move. I guess ice in some cases against this Pelossan, because if not, he gets up to +6 defense and stalls out the game. Then, incidentally, these 3 moves, water, ice, and grass, don't do a lot of damage into Magearna. So, sort of gels pretty well together, and the opponent really has to make a call if they see these 2 modes in team preview.
No, I agree with you. And I do think this is... we didn't really touch on Rotom Wash at all, I don't think. But I think that giving the team a Levitate user on top of Cresselia, plus 2 flying types, they have so many ground immunities to pair with Magearna and like Tyranitar, for example. I think positioning could be really key to get some wins that maybe they should not have win. So I don't know, should be interesting.
Yeah, one last point I have to make for this team is it does not pressure so much damage off the get-go. I think the fastest mon that can kind of do damage would be Children Black with like sort of Talonflame's Tailwind support. So like I ranked it a tiny bit lower in terms of like sort of threat of turn 1, like offensive pressure from turn 1.
Yeah.
So they kind of need to position well and like make good reads and dynamics at the right time to get the team going.
Yeah.
I think Scarf Cura might be super cool, huh?
Oh, absolutely. I think that would be awesome to see, in my opinion. Isn't there? Oh, what's the move called? I believe it's a 2-turn move. I don't remember. Is it Freeze Shock?
I don't think it's a 2-turn move, right? Oh dear, I'm not so sure.
I'm
not.
Is
sure
it?
it is.
Because
I don't know if it's Freeze Shock or the other one, but yeah.
Do you recall if it's physical or special?
I think it's physical.
It's physical.
If it's physical, that'd be cool to see like a Power Herb, Freeze Shock. Like
the black one is physical, the white one is special.
Yeah. So like a Power Herb Freeze Shock set could be cool if it was like specifically to kill something and couch for that reason. That could be very creative as well. So I don't know.
That's cool. Yeah, Freeze Shock is the physical version of Meteor Beam, 140 base power.
Oh wow.
Physical move with 90% accuracy.
Yeah, that's super
Yeah,
cool.
so power.
I'm pretty sure it has a possible secondary effect, right?
No, it has 30% paralysis.
Oh
wow.
Okay, that's pretty good. I just had something in mind.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's so rare and so interesting to see.
Mm-hmm.
One last thing I guess I want to say is the Tyranitar does seem a tiny bit out of place, but I guess Davey might have some plans for the Tyranitar, especially when the Tyranitar was drafted in pick number 2. Maybe he got sniped along the way. We never know.
Yeah.
I didn't look at the pick order. I just assumed he picked it up after the Pelossan for the stronger show up, maybe. But yeah, this order, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not too sure, and I also just like little piece of advice or warning. It's just like be mindful with your sand breaking your own sash, because you have like 3 or 4 potential focus sash users on your team. So if that's not used correctly, then that could potentially mess up your game plan. But yeah, pretty fun draft. I think there's going to be some interesting builds with this team.
Unnerf is also just a fantastic ability in draft because so many resistant berries are used.
Oh yeah.
Nasty.
Alrighty, up next we have Depiz coaching the Amarillo Appletuns. This team is very slow. That's the first thing I noticed. Nothing over 100, but it's very bulky, having Meltan. Melmetal. But this is the first time I think, possibly, that we haven't seen it with Dusclops yet. So I think their Trick Room, they're relying on Slowking, Galar, and Duskmane for that, which isn't bad pair-wise. The Steel types kind of clash. Same thing with Slowking, Galar being a Poison type. So they all fall weak to ground, which could be an issue. But they also apply a lot of offensive pressure with Moltres and Duraludon. And then Intimidate pressure from Gyarados or potentially Moxie. If they can get enough speed advantage somehow with that, that could be also very cool to see. Riolu brings a lot of coaching capabilities with this. They could basically click coaching into half this team for very certain strategies based on the matchup. What are your guys' thoughts?
Yeah, before I can say anything else about this team, I have to point out it has 6 ground weaknesses. 6.
Oh, is there that many? Yeah, I was counting a lot right there, but I didn't quite get to the team chart page yet. That's very interesting.
At least it has 2 immunities,
Yeah.
but Moltres Galar also doesn't really want to see Def Boost stacked up against it.
Mhm.
But yeah, opponents could be discouraged because of the 2 different flying types that could switch in. And it's just risky to go for Max Quake in that point. D-types are great, but maybe one of those 3 should be traded for ground resist or something.
Mhm.
I don't like that the fastest one is just 97
Yeah.
speed, but the team looks really good in Trick Room and has 2 decent setters. Like, they both have pretty nice abilities. Oh no,
Mhm.
wait, this is not the one that can't be taunted. And Nick Rosma has a good ability. Slowking, maybe not. Also, as you already mentioned, the Riolu from
Yeah.
Cat. Additionally, the team has a physical and a special stab max airstream that both hit super hard, which is nice to have.
Interesting. Yeah, I think Moxie Gyarados could come clutch if you don't really need to intimidate your opponents.
For sure.
My one-liner for this team is this is the first out of 3 triple steel teams that we're gonna see in this Pearl Division draft. It's kind of funny because steel types are actually few and far to come by.
Mhm.
And this team managed to draft 3 pretty impressive steel types, and they do kind of need a little bit of setup to try and get them going. Trick Room for Melmetal, and Gyarados needs quite a bit of protection.
Mhm.
I would think like coaching plus Gyarados might be interesting, but we don't know how that would go because body press is quite scary. Then I find the lower like point picks a bit questionable. I'm not sure if really Pinkerchin and Morpeko can kind of work together. And this coach really does have to be careful of bringing Gyarados beside Credili, because Credili will just suck up all of Gyarados' water moves, even Max Geyser.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and the ground type weakness is quite disturbing, although like the Crossbar does has Prism Armor, and Gyarados can sometimes threaten carrying a weakness policy, but the thing is that enough? So therefore I rank this team kind of lower. Lastly, they don't really have something to kind of get this Moltres Galar going unless I'm missing something important. However, like Morpeko being the fastest, to maybe try and proc it's kind of like the Raichu of the team, right? But the question is it enough? Because the opponent can just max lightning into the Moltres slot freely.
Yeah. I think as far as Moltres, I mean, I agree. There's not a lot that's gonna like pair next to the Moltres really well or support it that I'm also seeing. But we keep bringing up coaching, and I've never seen coaching with Moltres, and I think that could be really cool to run like a physical set. I don't know its physical flying move pool. I don't know if it gets anything at all. But
it can be quite interesting.
But I think raising its defensive stat, because its defense stat is the lower of the two at base 90, so I think that could help Moltres take hits a lot better, potentially. So that could be unique and original. I wouldn't be too opposed to seeing that used whatsoever.
Nice. Oh, Moltres gets so much flying moves though. It's Brave Bird, Dual Wing Beat, and
Oh wow!
Fly.
Yeah, so that actually could work in my opinion. I mean, I think I like doing offhand things like that in draft. So personally, that's something I'd actually be interested in trying with this team. But
all right. Let's see.
Alrighty, up next we have Niels coaching the Belgium Beldums. This was a coach that took part in just a little bit of Season 3. They ended up dropping for personal reasons. But they're coming back strong with the Marshadow round 1 pick and followed up by Ho-Oh. Which, historically, 2 very decent Pokemon within our draft, or our league entirely. And then right after that, they managed to snag Clefairy and Blastoise, which is a very common core for like Follow Me and Shell Smash. This team has a lot of setup capabilities. I mean, Registeel, historically, Iron Defense, with Amnesia, stuff like that. Rhyperior could do a couple things as far as damage boost. They have a very strong Trick Room mode, and they did get the mascot pick with Beldum, so that's cool to see them make some space for that. This team's very physically defensive. Both defensive stats are stacked right here. About the only thing it's really lacking is some special offensive pressure. Hydreigon's kind of all they got. Ho-Oh, you typically will run physical sets on Ho-Oh, unless you absolutely decide you need like Heat Wave or something. But overall, it's a very cool team from Niels. What do you guys think?
It's only one Pokemon above base 100 speed, but Bronzong setting Trick Room and Clefairy just doing its thing can just easily make this work. The speed weaknesses and resistances are super well spread out, and the team is just so bulky that you have a lot of great setup options like Shell Smash, Nasty Blood, and so on, especially with Clefairy's help. And as you already mentioned, the best first pick available.
Nice. I've seen Niels draft in another draft league called the Great Lakes Draft League, and I covered his team there. And he also drafted Beldum as one of his picks. I love it so much, the like being so brave to draft your mascot pick and yet still come up with like a very, what would I say? Like, okay, I would say it's a Beldum team, but still enough space for phenomenal mons. I think all the rest of the picks, other than the Beldum, are super high value picks, and they do work very well together. There's a very solid Fire Water Grass core, and this is the second triple steel team somehow that we can see in this draft. Looking at the type chart, I think I guess it just has to worry about maybe like rock type moves or ground type moves for some of the mons, but having Levitate on Bronzong and Ho-Oh like should be able to cover some weaknesses quite well. I really like Blastoise together with Serena, because Serena can protect Blastoise from the two monkeys that we might see in Thwackey and Rillaboom. And then actually 1, 2, 3, 4 mons on this team can Iron Defense and Body Press. That can be quite fun.
That is cool.
To kind of stall out and even Rhyperior gets Iron Defense and Body Press. So on the defense side, this team seems fine because even Marshadow can go for coaching that cannot be picked out. So this team might have to just watch out for attacks coming from the special side.
Yeah, I do want to kind of justify my rating as well, because I spoke very highly of the team, and I do think it could do amazing things. I just personally when I did the rating, I thought that I think it's going to rely on Clefairy too much. Like, I think Clefairy's redirection is going to kind of be the heart and soul of like getting off their setups consistently. And so if the opponent finds a way to prevent, to stop Clefairy like with ease, like let's say a Max Steel Spike that can OHKO it, for example, if it's not Sash or something, getting that defense buff versus this team that seems to be like dominantly physical attacking anyways, they lose their attack power in that situation. I think I don't know. Maybe it could have gone like a 6 or something, but I think they.
Oh, that's interesting.
I think they need more support options. I think there's phenomenal everything on this team. I mean, Beldum's cool, but like the other 9 are all very good Pokemon, but Clefairy's their only support. Like everything else kind of just attacks most of the time.
I see. Somehow we're meeting in the middle, I guess.
Yeah.
But I would say I would just add in some stuff like Blastoise having Fake Out, and then Marshadow just being able to just Dynamax, and then Serena sort of can actually do screens. We can also sort of do like swagger into someone with a Lumberry, and I think Hydreigon does offer like those great burst of damage off of turn 1, and if this player knows how to play Clefairy well and make good reads, not protecting Clefairy on turn 1, even going for that infamous Sing, I think the Friend Guard is really going to pay dividends in the long run and work super well for this team.
Yeah, and then I think one last thing I would say too, because you were kind of bringing up some other support moves. I just remembered Blastoise also has Icy Wind, so that could maybe combat some of the lower speed tiers here, and give things like Hydreigon, for example, a faster opportunity.
Oh my god! What an idea! I thought of Blastoise learns Bulldoze, and then Registeel has Clear Body.
Oh wow! Yeah, that could be that's super appealing in my opinion. So yeah, I would probably boost this team up a little bit, but regardless, it's a fun draft. Good job, Niels. Up next we have Ape Rider coaching the Machesney Park Slowpokes. And this is a returning quarterfinalist from Pro Division last season. if I'm not mistaken, last season was one of his first VGC drafts. He historically was a singles player, if I understood everything correctly and remembered what he told me. But he went straight for Tornadus again, and specifically to pair with Necrozma. That was his very particular core that he used last season. And Necrozma actually finished as the MVP of Pearl Division. Not quite kill leader, but it had the highest kill-death ratio out of the entire division, which is super cool to see because not very many people typically draft Necrozma with a lot of hopes. And I actually I noticed on our team chart here, we have Eternus and Necrozma split with restricted to mythical, so any viewers, Necrozma is the mythical in this situation, and it can Dynamax, so it can be very threatening with its Prism Armor ability. Almost nothing can really OHKO it. You're having to double into it in most cases. But yeah, this team is very, very offensive. It does have a couple bulky things, but nothing too high in the defense stats, so he's going to rely really on sheer damage, hoping to kill things first, from what it looks like, though. What do you guys think?
Yeah, Adam came in week 4 as a replacement where he didn't use Necrozma yet, but for the next 4 weeks of regular season plus the quarterfinals, it got to a kill-death ratio of 25, which is absolutely absurd. It came to 8 less games than the kill you mentioned, which is only at 1 kill less. It just absolutely wrecked everything in its way. Yeah, I think his type chart looks a little bit worrying. 5 rock weak Pokemon with just 2 resisting, and ground is equally as bad. At least with Cinderace, it kind of makes up for it if it manages to move on time. It's one of the fastest in the division, and it also has priority Tailwind with 2 Slash Rush Pokemon on top of it. And it also should work decent in Trick Room if he wants to get it up with his Necrozma. Yeah, Cinderace and Diggersby also don't need to worry about Intimidate at all, with 2 Defiant and 1 Contrary Pokemon on the team. It's a really interesting combination.
Yeah.
Also, Diggersby plus Tailwind was one of the biggest parts of the Season 2 Diamond winning team, so that's a big threat already. And I just really want to see him make 3 ice types on the team.
Yeah, I was going to follow up on that. I want to say out of Platinum and Diamond and what we've covered in Pro so far, this is, if I'm not mistaken, the first Hail Core we've actually seen drafted. It's not been too popular in our league this season, so yeah, I hope it does well, because I really love Hail. It doesn't get enough usage or reasons to justify using it over the other ones, really.
Yeah, Hail Cores are typically very weak in a Dynamax format, because Dynamax moves can change the weather, and the Hail Mons are usually weak to Max Steel Spike. I'm very curious to see if this turns out okay when Adam managed to draft both Slush Rush users. Could be quite fun. And one thing I want to say is this team seems to be almost hyper-offensive, with the ability to just always hit fast and hit hard. I think Cinderace and Bishop is also something that's very respectable, so opponents will kind of have to prepare for that mode as well. I really appreciate that Dynamax Necrozma. I think I mentioned in either the Platinum or Division power rankings that Necrozma actually gets Flash Cannon and Earth Power, if I'm not wrong. So having access to both Max Steel Spike and Max Quick in a pretty hyper-offensive team, and being able to find ways to proc the Necrozma's weakness policy, being able to be bulky with Prism Armor could help the team, and I could foresee the Necrozma becoming a good kill leader again. Quite impressive.
Yeah, overall super cool draft. I think he himself was just trying some new cores out in VGC as well, so I think he's even just as excited to gain some new experience this season. Yeah, so glad to have him back.
I think we haven't mentioned Diggersby and Lurentis. I think Diggersby covers, I guess, some form of ground coverage because it's physical as well. So I guess every mon is sort of protected from Intimidate, right? Because we have 2 potential Defiant mons in Tornadus and Bishop, and even Lurentis has Contrary that can make people think twice about going for like Max Whirlwind, going for Intimidate,
Oh,
or Max Phantasm, or Max Darkness that drops stats. But I guess Lurentis could just try to be like a good Trick Room answer. However, the team just has to be careful of ice types.
For sure. Yeah, and Lurantis is honestly such a appealing Pokemon to me for like 8 points. I think there's a lot of value because just like Malamar, it's having Contrary. It also has access to Superpower, so we can easily just boost its own stats just by attacking, if with like physical sets, and it gets quite the impressive physical moveset. So it could be a Dynamax threat under Trick Room for sure. So definitely underrated. I hope to see it do a lot better. Up next we have Mono coaching the Fossilized Fury. This team rather spread in terms of bulkiness and offensive pressure. We do have the staple like Raichu, Lapras core, and Celesteela in that matter. This team is very interesting. It looks like it wants to be a rain team just without a rain setter. So they're gonna probably rely on like a max geyser, I guess, if they really wanted to get rain up. I'm not sure if like Cottony learns rain dance or not. I could be wrong there, but yeah, I mean Lapras does what it does. It'll set screens and whatnot, make everything even bulkier, which is actually pretty scary with this team because this team's defenses with like Aurora Veil up could be pretty crazy. But yeah, round 1 Lapras even. So Mono. According to the draft order, definitely felt like Lapras was like a key piece for him. So I'm interested to see how he utilizes it. What are your guys' thoughts?
I really wish the Lapras would maybe be Politoed or something. I think it would fit the team really well. With Rain and Lightning Rod, it would negate both of Celesteela's weaknesses, so it can basically just max every game, and it's a super reliable strategy. The Rain would also help Seismitoad and Palkia with damage, and for one of those with speed, also protecting Jirachi and Ferrothorn the way it does with Celesteela. At least Lapras can do that, like you said, with the Max guys here. Also, G-Max Resonance additionally protects your team. Just wish it could max something else instead. But yeah, like harder hitting options, Lapras doesn't have the greatest attack stats. But yeah, for having 3 waters and 3 steels, I really like the resistances and weaknesses of this team. And only one of the waters is electric weak, and even Raichu covers for that. One thing I want to notice that the Celesteela and Seismitoad were just picked up in Grace Period. Unfortunately, I think the draft order showed them as drafted, but they were not the team yet. So maybe that
interesting. Yeah. Wow, I would think that the Celesteela is such a great addition to the team. So good job on proactively making this trade. So this is the last triple steel team. I would say this is the bulkiest triple steel team, like even bulkier than something like Necrozma, Duskmane, or even Melmetal, because the Celesteela and Ferrothorn coupled with Lapras's G-Max Resonance. So if the opponent does not prepare break, then these mons can just sit on the field. Ferrothorn famous for going for Iron Defense and Body Press, and then both Ferrothorn and Celesteela famous for going for Leech Seed onto both sides and stalling out the game. Lapras can just use Resonance to kill the grass types, leaving the rest of the mons all susceptible to Leech Seed. And at the same time, Lapras does have that option for Perish Song, like we always see in VGC, although it kind of died down after the rest of the restricted mons came in, or the legendary mons came in, so it kind of ended in Series 5.
Yeah.
Otherwise this team really does need to get itself going. It does need to sort of activate a weakness policy somewhere, or use Raichu to slow down the game and then come in the late game and Dynamax and try to reverse sweep, because the damage output from this team from the get-go to me is simply not enough, and sometimes going for stall will just leave you open to critical hits, so that might not be as healthy of a game plan to always rely on.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think Raichu with like Electro Web will be very big just for speed advantage, but yeah, even with the speed advantage they may not have enough offensive pressure at that point. So yeah, I think weakness policy or like Life Orb sets are probably going to be very common for this team. Maybe Choice Specs, Specs Palkia or something along those lines.
Yeah, that's where all the damage output comes from, right? Then personally, I'll be really thrilled to see Brutal Swing Raichu with Weakness Policy Jirachi, which it should work wonders for this team because Jirachi has pretty amazing coverage. Jirachi also has access to Meteor Beam.
Yes,
quite exciting.
Absolutely. Love that move. But yeah, super cool draft overall.
Okay. Next up. Is that 39?
Okay, so next up we have Mariah, coaching the Warren Central Zamazentas. This is another returning coach that had left mid-season last season. They're back, and this is the first time we've seen her not draft Zamazenta, which would be her mascot, for this current team title that she's using. She opted for Cali Shadow this time, which during Grace Period, even a little bit after, she was kind of tossing up the ideas of trading Shadow for Calyrex Ice and then back and forth. But at the end of the day, stuck with Calyrex Shadow and Zeraora. So those two picks back to back, though, phenomenal speed tiers. And then followed up with the Tapu Lele to pair Terrain with the Calyrex Shadow, which is very impressive in my opinion. I know that core has been used quite often in Series 10 right now, if I'm not mistaken. Which is, it can be quite dominant if you don't have the right lead or setup for it. This team is very frail, though. There's not a lot of defensive bulk. I think it's very close to an hyper-offensive team, in my opinion, but it does have a Moongus for redirection. It does have a very small like Tailwind setter with Fletchling. I'm not sure how often that'll come or not. I think Copperaja feels kind of out of place on this team. I'm not seeing a Trick Room setter unless I'm just missing something. So
Calyrex Shadow.
Oh, that's interesting. I wonder if that's an option. But yeah, I think this team's type wise. I don't know. It's very interesting. What do you guys think?
This team has two of the fastest available Pokemon, and I still don't like it, which makes me kind of sad. I would like to see a way to set up Trick Room, like you mentioned, that isn't Calyrex Shadow, because in my opinion, Copperaja isn't really valuable if you can't get it in Trick Room. Maybe I'm just undervaluing it, I'm not sure. It's good that there's the beat-up option for Arcanine, just you make it respect you in prep. It's just a Diglett which dies fast, but also its ability is fantastic. If there was a Trick Room, you could maybe even beat it up with Scrafty or something, which could be cool.
Yeah,
but otherwise just all Choice Scarf Scrafty would work.
Right, I was gonna say that, or I mean, base 95 Diglett isn't awful, and like you said, Arena Trap's very interesting with Arcanine. I also want to point out, rather than Justified, this team does carry double Intimidate with Scrafty and Arcanine, so that is pretty decent for the most part. But
yeah, the team also doesn't have a lot of weaknesses, which is nice. Edge, I don't know, it just doesn't really look threatening to me, to be honest. But if I would have to look close at it, like if I had to play against and had to prep, I would probably change my mind because it has a few really strong Pokemon on it.
Yeah, I think a lot of very strong options overall. Unfortunate that Calyrex Shadow cannot Dynamax, because if it can even go for Max Phantasm with Zeraora, Physical Zeraora, or Choice Scarf Dracovish, because Choice Scarf Dracovish still doesn't outspeed Calyrex Shadow. Unfortunately, it can't do that, so that's not an option. But going for very strong Astral Barrage or Expanding Force with Tapu Lele is a force to be reckoned with. I've seen a lot of people just put specs on their Calyrex, and it really just does wonders and closes out games. When you play a game in Series 9 with Dynamax, some games go 3 or 4 turns. Some Series 10 games go in 2 turns because you just go, Whimsicott hard switch in Tapu Lele, Expanding Force both, like all 4 mons die because you steamroll. So I feel that this Calyrex Shadow is a useful pick, and I think Mariah can try and experiment with it more because it does have so many interesting, useful moves in VGC, and it can be kind of flexible. And as an opponent, I always have to respect that Choice Scarf on it. And then I also think twice running moves like Shadow Sneak or Sucker Punch if I don't have correct terrain control. And I feel like this Trick Room option on this team seems kind of strange, so they kind of have to use Amoonguss in a way to sort of be a Trojan horse in opponents' trick room teams to discourage them from just freely going for a trick room strategy against this team. So this Among Us is always gonna be kind of sus, so just look out for it.
Yeah, overall, I think the Copperajah pick, I think, like you said earlier, the steel types are kind of hard to come by in draft. Most of them, like the good ones, are all way higher in the values, and they usually get taken early on. So I think Copperajah really just fell into like the low tier steel type that she could get to finish out her cores and type chart for the most part. At least that's what my thought process is. I don't know what the reasoning was, but yeah, I think it's a very threatening team, as stated, if used correctly.
Yeah, I guess one last thing I want to say is this team just has to be aware of like opponents with timely protects, because if they protect from one mon and then the other mon goes for an attack to take out an important attacker in probably Dracovish, I guess Tapu Lele, or even Calyrex Shadow, then this team might crumble because the Pokemon in the back might not be able to follow up with important damage to close out the game, because damage is the name of the game. You need to kill all 4 mons to win, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I agree. Alrighty. Up next we have OC Frey, coaching the Pogging Porygons. And I do just want to state, his logo is fantastic.
Quick.
Man, but I also wanted to state, he didn't draft this initial team himself. It was actually a combination of me, Julien, and Spades in the Jewel division. OC Frey's on vacation right now, so we were kind of just picking stuff that he may like. He sent us a draft order. He wanted a Sun team, but Groudon got sniped. So we kind of had to make do with what we had here. But yeah, overall, I mean, I think it came out very well for the most part. Very special defensive, with Victini paired with the Veltal for the mythical and restricted slots, which type-wise I think is very interesting. We were able to snag the Venusaur in Sun. Ninetales isn't a bad Sun option. It's not quite Torkoal, so there's no Trick Room option for this team. So this team is very fast, very offensive. They don't want to face Trick Room whatsoever. And they have a few options as far as preventing Trick Room, but I think overall this is more or less just a Comfy team. It's a Comfy Sun team. There's a couple different things that can work with Comfy here. And definitely don't disrespect the Charjabug. I think Charjabug is a fantastic tier 2 if you're specifically just looking for special attack damage boost with battery. But what do you guys think?
It's easily my absolute favorite logo this season. Not entire RPDL though, because Gatrinix logo is untouchable. It's the S++ rank, to be honest. But yeah, 4 Pokemon with base 100 and 1 with 99, and the rest going down to a minimum of 70. I absolutely hate this. They're just so cluttered together. I've never seen something like this before. Good thing there's the Venusaur and the Tailwind option. Also the double Intimidate damage reduction helps with it. But there's so many scary 2 Pokemon combinations that doesn't make it fun to prep for, or in team preview, to be honest. I especially like the look of Crocodile next to Eviltal if there's no fairy to post them.
Oh wow, dark type spam.
Yeah.
Yeah, speaking of the logos, yeah, both logos have Pog in their name, PogChamp Calipers versus Pogging Porygons, and created by a kind of like top team, with the mod team from RPDL. It's quite interesting. My opinions is like Sun Victini can actually be quite scary, and this team does have impressive tools in the form of Comfy, Hitmontop, even Crocodile with Intimidate and Snarl. So I think it's okay. Let's look at the type chart. There are not a lot of immediate type weaknesses. I guess just rock type, and rock types are still kind of rare in some drafts. So one thing to just look out for is just to position your mons well. Watch out for the safety goggles as usual, and then bring in Comfy at the correct time to sort of heal the team, because Yveltal by itself is such good disruption, so much so that it's very difficult for opponents to take it down easily. then always having Comfy to heal it back will allow Yveltal to get off as many moves as possible to stall out the game, and then maybe bring in a Dynamax option in the late game to reverse sweep.
Yeah, and aside from, I mean, you could even proc a policy on Yveltal. You could do policy Milotic, policy Crocodile. If you wanted an offensive Hitmontop, that's there as an option. But the biggest thing here that gained a lot of traction from Season 3, which was from Cheesy.
There we go.
Yeah, from Cheesy in Platinum Division, would be Sap Sipper Miltank pair with Comfy, which it's very interesting. It's definitely easy to prep for, in my opinion. I mean, you just have to hinder the Miltank, whether it's with spam Baby Doll Eyes, Charm, Burn It. I mean, there's ways to basically prevent it from doing anything, but yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting draft. But like you stated, yeah, we can go ahead. Sun Victini is just something I'm interested to see, because I don't think we've seen Sun and Victini yet. I could be wrong though.
Yeah, I just really want to see Victini next to Groudon. It's so good.
This is the closest we can, I guess this is the closest we can get. One last thing to know is that this team does have 2 mons weak to flying. I guess it's just the Venusaur and Hitmontop. So having no flying resist might be a little bit scary, but then I guess you just have to just sleep some stuff and watch out for Lumberry or Safety Goggles.
Right. Alrighty, up next we have TommyTooTurnt coaching self-titled team name TommyTooTurnt. So round 1 Clefable pick was very interesting. And then paired that with Dracozolt as the second pick. So they didn't get their restricted till round 3, which was the Zamazenta Crown, which is honestly it's been gaining a lot more attention the longer basically RPDLs existed. Like Season 1 it went from being absolutely hated to Season 2 everyone really loved it, and Season 3 is kind of in the middle from what I remember. This team is very defensive though. In both the stats it's across the board, almost everything's above 90 or higher. Offensive pressure wise, it's fairly mixed. I think this team has a decent toolbox in my opinion, with like Dusclops and Latios being like bulldoze users potentially for Dracozolt or Gigalith. I think Porygon Z is a fairly decent just sweeper with the max strike, as long as your opponents don't have like a ghost type or something. I think Hustle Dracozolt's fantastic if you can outspeed things. And with there being no sand core here or anything to make it go faster, you're kind of relying on Latios with like Tailwind, which can be interesting. Cosmome is the tier 1 pick for Mythical, is kind of interesting. What do you guys think?
There's a Gigalith for Sandstream.
Oh yeah. No. I just forgot. Yeah, I even mentioned the Gigalith. I just forgot that it was Sandstream for some reason. Yeah, you're right.
No worries. It's just really hard to take Pokemon with speeds all over the place. They go from 25 up to 128, and they're never more than 18 apart. It looks fantastic. It works really well in Tailwind, Trick Room with Follow Me, or just as they are. There's so many different good, strong Tumon combinations with these weaknesses and resistances. Outside of Dusclops, literally every single Pokemon of here can max. Even Clefable, if it got off a Meteor Beam or something. It looks really strong and scary to me.
Yeah, I think the only thing to kind of note on the type chart as well is it's showing 4 ground weaknesses, but two of those are actually Levitate, so it's really just 2. So it's like I think the draft and overall type-wise was very well executed.
Nice. I think this is pretty much a sand team, but then there are some moves that is interesting that can enable this Dracozolt. Popularized by a player called Jamie Boyd. He used Clefable with Sash sometimes with Gravity, and then allow Dracozolt to just keep going for Hustle, Book Beats. Yeah, but that's if you account for opponents who have the slower speed tier than Dracozolt. I think the Tailwind and Trick Room options from this team are really reliable in Tailwind from Latias and Trick Room from Dusclops. And then this team also does have that important all-important threat of Porygon Z and Clefable. So I think going with that Clefable pick on turn 1, not sure if it's a bit too expensive for my liking, but having the Clefable is always a very important anchor for the team, and I think it would work well. This team might fall for the trope of 6 PSS, like 6 Pokemon slot syndrome, because they need to choose correct mons to set up Trick Room, and maybe also account for a fast mode against your opponent. So it's very tricky to choose 6 out of these 9 mons. I'm not counting the Cosmo at all. So the coach would have to try and work the matchup out, think things through, and come up with good game plans. If you commit to Trick Room, you might have to commit fully and bring something like Araquanid and Gigalith. Yeah, speaking of Araquanid, Dusclops Araquanid is so popular in Series 9 with that Rock Tomb plus Weakness Policy Araquanid doing so much good damage in the 4 precious turns of Trick Room.
Oh, that's really cool.
This team is certainly a team that you really cannot mess with. And nowadays, Zamazenta, people don't run it defensive. They run it offensive with max attack, probably Adamant, just to keep going for Behemoth Bash into opponent's Dynamax, or just close combat, raw close combat to do good damage.
Right. They have a very good draft from Tommy. If I'm not mistaken, this is his very first draft league, from what I understand.
That's what I understood.
Yeah, so very, very well drafted for a first timer, in my opinion.
Fantastic.
So last but not least, we have Gengar Heracross coaching the spine-chilling Gengar, and this is another, I think, a beginner to VGC. This Gengar, if I'm not mistaken, stated that they are dominantly a singles player. But yeah, right off the back, picks 1 and 2, Mewtwo and Indeedee, so they went straight for an expanding Force Core from what it looks like. So this team is very, very, I want to say offensive as well, but they also have the Indeedee Follow Me options to help set up Trick Room with Hatterene. I think Deontay fits very well in this team, paired with the redirection and whatnot. I think Urshifu pairs nicely to kind of hit some of the things that would normally counter the dark types and stuff to kind of scare away this team. I don't know. I think overall type wise, I think there's some things missing. No, they do have a fire and water type. They just kind of blended in. So yeah, Inteleon's an okay Pokemon. I think they do have Soak and Magic Powder options, which is kind of cool. Although Soak's not going to really do much because they don't have a electric or grass type unless you're running just like coverage moves. But yeah, what do you guys think?
Even with 3 psychic types, the Ghost and Dark weaknesses don't look bad against this team. It has a fast psychic spam mode, a slow psychic spam mode. It can do it all.
Yeah.
Urshifu, Marowak, and Yancy get rid of the steals and darks that would get in the way of the strategy, and also those plus Scizor, however the fuck you pronounced it, can handle opposing psychics that may be resisted.
Yeah.
Only unfortunate thing is that Sucker Punch from Urshifu loses a bit of value, but yeah, the team looks really solid.
Yeah, and I did want to correct myself real quick. I said this team didn't have a grass type. I didn't count Ferroseed, although you still wouldn't click Soak for Ferroseed in most cases. So
yeah,
yeah, that's the thing. The problem with Ferroseed is that Ferroseed's attack and special attack. I've known this because I play in like a little cup format. It cannot be trusted. You cannot rely on Ferroseed to do grass type damage. So this team might have to get creative and look elsewhere. I would think Mewtwo would always have the correct coverage. Yeah, correct coverage move to sort of fit your needs. However, in my opinion, I think the best way to use Mewtwo in some cases would be to go with light play and screen, because Mewtwo is actually quite inherently bulky. I've always wanted to come up with like a list of useful ways to use restricted mons in our RPDL, because we cannot Dynamax them. So picking your restricted mon could be quite important. Over here, this example of Mewtwo plus Indeedee is so formidable and impressive, and I think both of you have already covered all the other components of the team. Not forgetting this Gmax Hatterene, right, with the option to go for Gmax Smite. I'm just very curious that the previous team number 13 drafted Clefable, and they did have that option to draft in DD. So did these two coaches maybe come up with like an agreement or something? Because I will almost always go for the Indeedee pick before the Clefable pick.
Yeah.
Quite unfortunate there. Then one last thing is I didn't really want to talk about the Licky Licky because it just kind of does Licky Licky stuff. I just want to say that Indeedee plus Caesar might be a little bit tricky to use because you might accidentally block yourself from being able to go for a bullet punch. So you got to be careful there.
Yeah, 100%. But I definitely think I think this team has a lot of options, like you stated. I think like support Mewtwo sets can be good. I think support Inteleon sets can. I think a screen setting Light Clay and Inteleon set could also be interesting, since it also has access to like Icy Wind and whatnot as well. So yeah, I'm curious to see what Gengar pulls off as a beginner to VGC and draft for VGC or a doubles format.
Nice. Summary time.
Yeah, so with that being said, though, that is going to be our Pearl Division power rankings. Looking at the totals here, it looks like our top scorer turns out to be Ed, coaching the Ninjazards at the very top, if I'm not mistaken, with an 8.8. So that was going to be our Zacian Colossal, like Dragon.
Interesting, right?
Yeah, super well-rounded draft, but again, this seems like one of the more, as far as our ratings went, more balanced ratings across the board for all teams. So overall, very well done drafts. I'm excited to see this season. I think Pearl interests me the most sometimes, just because I like to see how the beginners play the game compared to how like someone with more experience would have made their decisions. And there's just so much room for growth and just practice starting this division. So yeah, overall, I wish you guys luck. Hope you guys enjoy your season, especially if it's your first time for VGC. I definitely hope you guys have a good experience with it and continue to play in the format. But yeah,
it's always good to see. It's always good to see new perspectives into the game. And there are some players that also come from like a singles background that can be quite cool, like bringing a fresh take into the game. So I really do encourage everybody to just have fun. Yeah, if you don't, competitive Pokemon is really all just about having fun, coming up with something creative, or trying your best to counter everything that the opponent can throw at you and try and win games.